I'm shocked how Madrid didn't foul him, because Nunnally had a pretty good look in the situation where you're down by 3. I know that there was Edy Tavares in front, so the gap, is different compared to some other bigs. But still, to let them shoot that 3 for James Nunnally, to waste like 5 seconds of not fouling Exum, that was crazy.
He was, Tavares was there, but in my eyes, that was a open shot for Nunnally. Tavares did not want to switch, which is normal which is the usual option in these late game situations. You switch, but since they really don't switch with Tavares, only really late if the guard goes inside. So he kind of backed down and he was like pointing a finger for someone to pick him up, and he contested the shot late after seeing that, suddenly no one is near Nunnally. So that was such a good shot for Partizan and could have been a complete game changer.
Yeah, and it felt like there were no directions from Madrid's bench, to foul Exum. I was surprised. It felt like Real Madrid players were also kind of confused what to do.
I want to go to another point immediately, but since you said, it felt like Madrid's players did not really know what to do and there were no directions. They played a lot of zone yesterday, and it was, to me, probably together with Nigel Williams-Goss and Walter Tavares, the main thing of that game, why they won it. But there were possessions where Madrid's players, for example, 4 guys are standing in zone defense and one guy is like, oh, so which zone, which defense we are using right now, individual or zone defense? And even with this kind of communication, and there were like 3 instances like this. It's a sideline out of bounds play. 4 guys are standing in the zone, or Janan Musa, or it doesn't really matter who. One guy is just looking around which defense we are running. Even with that, Partizan couldn't really took advantage and against that zone defense. So yeah, a lot of miscommunications for Real Madrid. So a lot of room for improvement for them. But I'm seeing this since the beginning of the series. So you could even say Real. There were some possessions where they got lucky, obviously. Partizan missed some great shots against the zone. But also zone defense was, to me, the biggest game changer, from a tactical standpoint.
Yeah, so hello everyone. Let's start the official part of the EuroBONUS podcast. Augustas Šuliauskas and Donatas Urbonas, we're here to share our hot takes following morning after 2 crazy games in Belgrade and Tel Aviv.
2 playoff battles.
And I hope our BN Plus member Mota won't be mad on me because I will repeat his words in our WhatsApp community chat. But Mota said that he stated that I would trade shorter regular season for playoffs and semifinals and finals. I think that's true. I think that's everybody would agree with just a bit shorter regular season and just extending this playoff madness to the semifinals and the finals.
Definitely.
Both fans experience, both the intensity of all games basically just proves that it's a way better product than just a short weekend tournament with the top 4 teams deciding the champions in 2 games basically.
I can't agree more to this. I would love to see playoff series all the way to the finals. I would sacrifice some regular season games if we have to do it. I was thinking exactly the same thing watching yesterday Partizan and Real. A single elimination. Yeah, you could see the plan of each coach. Yeah, you could see the greatness of players, of 1 maybe or 2 individuals in one game. But what a series gives you is like 1 player winning 1 game, being the X factor. Then the 1 coach maybe showing something new, interesting, winning that game. Then maybe some little plays like Donatas Motiejunas won against Maccabi. That plays little plays wins you games, and then maybe the other coaches respond, and then another X factor comes, and it's just such a great product to watch and enjoy and to cover. And no single elimination games, or I'm not putting Vasilija Micic game winner higher than the series we are having right now, because simply it's a one shot. Here are you seeing so many different things, and it's just great to watch.
Yeah, I also had few quick thoughts after experiencing this great drama that we had yesterday. First of all, I would say that I'm super happy that the line wasn't crossed, especially in Belgrade, with this, under these circumstances, with both situations being at the top of the intensity and the drama and the emotions boiling over. I was really, and credit goes to both organizations. First of all, the police authorities that made this game super safe, at least looking from a side. And I would say that what Partizan did with the communication, starting from the press conference in Madrid already, Zeljko Obradovic making those statements about, fans, encouraging fans to be, emotional, supportive for their team, but not violent. Then you see Partizan and Madrid front office having a dinner or lunch together, sending this message also on the social media. Then there was this banner before the game, basketball unites people and stuff like that.
I don't know. It was kind of funny to me that
it looks funny, but they used all measures.
I know what they were trying to do. Exactly.
To send the message, to keep it only basketball related. So that's huge. And also credit goes to some players. For instance, maybe I'm just overthinking the situation, but there was this play where Real Madrid went into the transition. Abramovic tried to block the shot and he jumped. It looked like a pretty good block, but the referee called a foul. The initial reaction of the fans, like, oh my God, what a bad call it was. They thought that it was a clean block by Abramovic. Watching on TV, you could also feel that I need to watch the replay to make sure what has happened. In the first second, just getting down on the floor, Alexa Ivanovic shows the finger and accepts the foul. And why I think this play was important. Having this hostile crowd, having this huge support of 20,000 people is not just a great advantage to have in the playoffs, but it's also a huge responsibility. Because in any other situation, even if Abramovic just stayed neutral or, tried to appeal the referee's call, he just could, increase the level of unnecessary emotions. And as I just said in the previous pod, reacting to this Monaco Maccabi game too, usually it actually puts referees under more difficult conditions to make the right calls. So I think this is a huge responsibility for the players, to be fair. If there's a need or if there's a reason to increase the intensity in the crowd, that's okay. But when it's not necessary, it's your responsibility to try to control that crowd. Because at the same second when Abramovic accepted the call, everybody got silent. Everybody were cool. So that's a huge thing, I think.
Talking about referees, and I cannot not mention that that replay of the block / goaltending / obvious mistake by referees. We saw on a replay, you have the basket on which the shot is going up. You completely see Tavares hitting the rim and moving it. So that's a goaltend. That's 2 points. And I don't know, but the refs decide to watch the replay from the other side of the court. I was like, what is going on? Why are they doing this? Why they're choosing this one and they're going frame by frame? So you are not really seeing the movement from that far away. And, 2 points happens to be the difference in this game. I'm not saying, Partizan would have won that game with those 2 points, but it was a huge call and a weird call from experienced referees. Yeah. And the ref even said, "Give me the control." So like before choosing which camera to watch on. So that was kind of weird. But
yeah, that was an obvious mistake. But at the same time, I think that the difference of how refs controlled Game 2 in both series, Maccabi Monaco and Partizan and Madrid, and in Game 3, I think it was huge. Both games were way better controlled than before, and it really helped, to. Getting back to this topic, it really helped to keep the crowd pretty calm, I would say, under these circumstances.
Okay.
The another short take, I wanted to say that those two games prove that home court advantage in the playoffs doesn't mean anything, because you couldn't put both home games in a more hostile circumstances, knowing giving the pressure, giving the history of game two and everything. Both teams won those games. So I actually had those conversations in Monaco with some players during the break before both games, and they actually just said that. I mean, Monaco is the best example. The last year they also won against Olympiacos in Piraeus, although they also have a great crowd. So I mean, it's getting about the coaching adjustments, some mental adjustments that the players make, and this fan thing it's amazing. I think that from choreography side, it was amazing performance by both Maccabi and Partizan fans. The way they created pressure, especially in Tel Aviv, I mean, where, the line was close to be crossed. I mean, it was huge to try to impact the game, try to affect the players' mentality. But I mean, winning those games under these circumstances, it just proved that home court advantage is cool, but it's not a decisive factor at all.
Apart from Barcelona, what's the record of home teams in these series? I mean, Barcelona are
even last year they lost against Bayern Munich.
No, but I'm talking about this year. They are 2-0, and the other teams.
Olympiacos they also lost to Fener.
Olympiacos also lost to Fener, so that's 1-1. In Partizan series, all 3 games are won by away teams, and in Monaco series against Maccabi, 2 games are won by. So that's 2 wins and 6 losses, if I'm not wrong.
I'm bad at math.
Whatever, so. but it's they're winning every third game by a home team, and even with Barcelona, the away team has won more times. Anyway, so a couple of points I wanted to talk about from Partizan Real.
Yeah, because these were my just general feelings after both of these games, and let's go deeper to Partizan and Real Madrid.
I mean, before talking about individuals, I just wanted to mention the zone defense again. I think it really, every time Real switched to zone defense, it was a shock for Partizan, a little bit of shock. Zeljko was prepared. There were some nice plays, how to get the ball into the middle, into the paint, how to get some open frees. They worked, but Partizan didn't convert on those in the first half. After that, it's hard to run maybe the same plays, and it's hard to play your offense when it's like 2 possessions, they play zone defense, then they go to individual, then they go back again to zone. So it was kind of, some chaos in Partizan offense. It definitely impacted their offense a lot. I want to see what Zeljko will do going forward, how he will adjust. And the interesting thing is that, the first line of defense of Real's defense can be overly aggressive. Why? Because you have Walter Tavares in the paint. So usually you don't want, if you're playing zone defense, you don't want the ball to go inside in the middle. You don't want the ball to go here. But with Real Madrid having Tavares there, they actually force the guards to go inside. And you see Dante Exum driving in, seeing Tavares, and then jumping and passing it out. And the advantage is dead, You see guys going in, trying to shoot, they get blocked. Or Zach Lide getting the ball in the middle of on the free throw line. Everyone else is denied because Tavares is in front of him, and Lide is just shooting there, but neither it's good offense nor it's a comfortable shot for him because he sees Tavares standing in front. So it's really interesting for me how they will adjust. Basically this zone defense. The best example was the start of fourth quarter, +5 for Real Madrid. I think 68-63. 2 possessions, Real goes to man-to-man defense. 5 points for Partizan in 2 possessions. They switch back to zone. They're like 3 dry possessions for Partizan in a row. They try to do something, but in the end, it's either not a good shot or they are forced to turnovers and stuff like that. So that was one thing. What were your points?
My first initial reaction was actually maybe it was because I got so close to Monaco and Maccabi series that I decided to watch the full game in Tel Aviv before switching on this Partizan game, although probably the 90% of Europe were watching this game. But
that's good because you are watching that series live, I'm watching the other series live. So
yeah, and I basically, the game has ended and I jumped into this Belgrade's game, and it was like 3 minutes left. The score was almost tie. I think that Nunnally made this 3-pointer to give Partizan some lead, but Real tied the game again.
Three.
And I'm watching that the end of the game, and I'm like, has this feeling, God, I believe they're missing Kevin Punter so badly. And it was my initial thought, like watching the game, like from 3 to 2 minutes to play until the final whistle. And then they keep missing shots, and they ended up missing 7 of their last 8 field goals. I wouldn't say that all of those shots were bad shots. They were lacking some luck. For example, Trifunovic tip-in. Nunnally has some great look. Also, Hezonja made some huge defensive rebound when it felt like the ball was already going in. So it's not like these were bad shots, but in the crunch time, I mean, you see the main guy, the main star sitting on the bench, and the game couldn't give a better example how much Partizan missed Kevin Punter.
You know, there's a saying, the ball gets heavy in the crunch time.
Yeah.
And you could see that. You mentioned those good misses. There was this possession where I think Alen Smailagic misses an open free. They get that's a great shot for Partizan. He misses. He hasn't missed. Until the third quarter of yesterday's game, I think he was perfect from 3-point line, 5 or something, or 5 or 6, whatever. And then in the fourth quarter, he misses that free pretty badly. It bounces off the backboard first. Then they got an offensive rebound. Then Yam Madar misses a free from the 45 angle, where usually, Kevin Punter is there, and he's, I would love to, if I'm Partizan, I would love to have Kevin Punter shooting that in that situation. But the ball got heavy, and what Real did, they asked Alen Smailagic and Yam Madar to hit those big shots to basically close the series and clinch the Final Four. And it's not, I don't think these players, are used to doing this, to these big shots, to these big moments. So it wasn't really a surprise for me. They missed. And, not having Kevin Punter for game 4, and if it's a close game, I'm probably again betting on Real Madrid. Just because, Kevin Punter is not there. And Partizan will need a player to step up in these big moments if they are having, a close game again. So another thing I saw was finally Real Madrid adjusted to Partizan attacking Tavares. Mm-hmm. I was shocked how they allow these pick and pop situations to affect their game so much. And yesterday in the second half, they finally decide to, guard follows over, and then they do a late switch or a peel switch, whatever you want to call it. And guard just simply, when they pass out the ball to the popping Smailagic, the guard goes and they do a late switch, And they were not doing this. They were involving a third defender for basically 2.5 games, and Smailagic were killing it, and passing it out, making threes, driving, and suddenly you have a switch, you have a guard against Walter Tavares, and it's never easy to score in ISO situation against Tavares. You saw James Nunnally getting blocked in one of those situations. We saw Alen Smailagic losing the ball, trying to drive from perimeter against the guard. So finally they adjusted something, they changed, and they saw how to stop this pick and pop, which has been killing them basically for 3 games. So now I think the ball is in Obradovic's court, and obviously Matthias Lessort is coming back, so the game will be different, but finally Real has found something that worked.
Yeah, and I mean, huge credit goes to Edy Tavares. I mean, 26 points, 24 of those points in the last 3 quarters, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks, 41 efficiency ranking, career high, and one of the best playoff marks all time. Only Alfonso Ford and I think Carlton Mars had the record is 45, so he was very close to the all-time high. And I think that watching the impact that Tavares did on both ends of the floor, and knowing the conditions that he was forced to play through, knowing he actually played when he was hurt. He was still hurt from the injury that he suffered in game 1. And the situation was so serious that the initial reaction was that Tavares might be out for the rest of the season, both in the EuroLeague and ACB. Maybe more in the EuroLeague, maybe, keeping some hopes for the ACB finals. But still, the initial medical projections were that the injury was serious. Then they checked, and it wasn't a sprained knee, but some huge, without any damage to ligaments, but a pretty tough bump, which still affected Tavares' game. And in some situations, you could think that Tavares was actually limping on the court, but he still managed to play 35 minutes, 35 high usage minutes, I would say. And I mean, his performance, his dominance on both ends of the floor, it doesn't go only on free blocks. The number of shots he changed was huge. I wish to have some statistical category with shots changed or even air balls counting to blocks or something, because it was huge. And it might be some random stat, but for instance, in game 1 and in game 3, when Tavares was on the court, Partizan's 2-point field goal percentage in game 1 was 45, in game 3 it was 49. When Tavares was out in game 2, Partizan made almost 61% of 2-point field goals. And it also goes to your takes about the zone defense that Real Madrid played and used Tavares as a facilitator in the paint. But at the same time, I just wanted to give a credit to the player who is, I would say, one of the toughest players in the EuroLeague, given the fact the injuries he tries to play through. Because, for instance, in the middle of the regular season, there was the situation where he sprained his ankle. And in a normal situation, he was also kind of suggested by Madrid staff, just to take a few games off, like for 4 games off, just to rest his ankle and, just to come back 2 or 3 weeks later. He played from the game 1. I mean, he didn't want to rest. And I believe that in many situations, if that was not Tavares, I'm not sure if that guy played in game 3. But knowing it was Tavares and knowing that he missed game 2, you could feel that the pain and the situation was just impossible to play, because he would play through any injury that he's capable of playing off. So the impact he made was huge. I mean, he alone scored almost the same amount of points as the whole Partizan front line. Lidej, Smailagic, Vukcevic, Koprivica, they scored 32 points, got 13 rebounds, 1 block. And once again, Tavares had 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 blocks. And I would say that Partizan will make adjustments to stop Tavares as well. I don't think that they were physical enough. I don't think they were smart enough because, for instance, rephrasing the one smart guy on the sidelines of Partizan, 4 fouls to give. Hello, 4 fouls to give. So there were situations there they could have avoided Tavares dominating both boards and just in the paint. And I believe that Lessort, although it's one of the worst matchups for him in the playoff series, he will bring this physicality and intensity to make Tavares' life tougher, just at least to avoid those easy points that Tavares had enough.
Definitely, I think Matthias Lessort will help immensely, Partizan's defense, because yesterday it was Tavares and just simply being too big, overpowering everyone. We saw Real Madrid scoring 8, 9, 10 times. I don't know the exact number, but they were running the same pick and roll with him. And I was wondering, why they're not giving the ball to Tavares maybe in the post. I know he's not a big, post-up guy, but you have Alen Smailagic or Zach Edy defending Tavares. So that's 20 centimeters of advantage. They were running this pick and roll. Alen Smailagic at the level of the screen. Tavares gets in behind. Lob pass to him, and the help defenders are even smaller. So he was scoring at will, just dunking, and if Edy was in a drop, it's a lob pass, and you saw that alley-oop dunk with the one hand. Doesn't look normal. It looks weird, at least from my point of view. But that was efficient offense. They were getting those points every time down the road. With Real Madrid figuring out how to guard Partizan's pop action against Tavares, how do Partizan move forward from this? Because Partizan haven't figured out how to stop this pick and roll. with Tavares, neither in game 1 nor in game 3. So how do you adjust? Obviously, Matthias Lessort will help. So maybe that's an answer because he gives this physicality, as you mentioned. And another player we have to talk is Nigel Williams-Goss. Yeah, I mean, we waited for like 25 minutes or 30 minutes. I don't know the time to say his name, but I was impressed with his intensity from the first minutes of the game, basically.
I would say the first minutes of the game were trash for Nigel Williams-Goss. I think that he kind of did some couple of mistakes, or at least he kind of forced some situations. And it was a tough beginning for the entire Real Madrid team. I mean, being down
maybe after that
0-12, I think. So I mean, it was really tough. But he recovered as basically the entire Madrid team.
It was that 10-0 was basically Real Madrid suffering the consequences of what happened in the last game. I mean, that arena was lit. Janan Musa.
That was the home court advantage.
That was the home court advantage.
10 extra points for the first minute.
Yeah, you start the game 10-0. That's cool, And they're saying home court advantage doesn't help. So that was some, just Janan Musa going straight into the defender. Sergio Llull throwing that bounce pass straight into the out of bounds. So yeah, that was that. But after that, Williams-Goss, his intensity on defense. Basically 10 minutes of Alexa Avramovic erased because of his defense on Avramovic. I think Avramovic was -7, and he had an individual 84-point offensive rating when he was on the court. That's a really low number. And just being decisive on the offensive end,
making tough shots.
Partizan risked on him. He made those shots when they went under. When they didn't go on ISO situations, that dagger in the last quarter, step back free, tough shot, and just basically pushing the ball in transition as well. Trying to get easier shots. Fantastic game by him. Probably not the hero for Real Madrid. One would have expected. So huge compliments for Williams-Goss for this game and the tough shots he made.
Batman and Robin performance by Tavares and Nigel Williams-Goss. I mean, he scored 16 points in the second half on a great field goal shooting, 5 from 8, 1 assist, 1 offensive rebound. Very important in the fourth quarter. 2 steals, 0 turnovers in the second half. Best plus and minus in the second half. And, Partizan fans are called grobari, which means grave diggers. And this former grobari guy, Nigel Williams-Goss, who played for Partizan, he was the grobari last night for Partizan. So moving forward, there's this interesting thing that now Real Madrid will have Gabriel Deck back, and there's of course Matthias Lessort back. And who do you think is in a advantage situation of these returning players? Because I have a feeling that as much as Lessort will help to deal with Tavares, as much as physicality he brings, athleticism he will bring to protect the paint, I also think that Deck has a huge impact in this series. And I would even say that maybe Deck's impact is bigger than Lessort's.
First of all, if we are talking about suspensions, Yabusele getting only 5 games, I haven't heard a single person that agreed with this.
I've heard actually. I've talked with one GM, and he said that his main idea was that nobody got hurt.
But that's why do you
I agree with your point.
Of the situation by the results of it. You have to value the
risk that Exxon was put in
and the moves, not the result, because it could have ended way worse. It could have ended in Dante Exum injuring, I don't know, his back, his neck, whatever, you can injure when you're doing this type of movement. And, he only because he doesn't get hurt, you suspend him only for 5 games. I don't think that's
I'm not advocating. So. I mean, I'm not advocating that take, but
that's an interesting take to hear. So I just only disagree. With that one.
But I mean, for me, 5-game suspension sounds weak, given the fact that Milos Teodosic was suspended for 2 games. For insulting referees.
For trash talking, basically, referees.
So,
that's 2 games.
That was an example that EuroLeague has to do something with their regulations, because it basically doesn't make sense when you try to compare the seriousness of both situations. But another part was tricky. I mean, Yabusele, I mean, we could agree that, okay, he's out for the EuroLeague season. Maybe he could have been suspended for more games, at least to feel some impact for the next season. And I'm not, for instance, I'm not sure if the 10-game suspension is something really bad, because it means that basically the next year you're going to miss not even 1/3 of the regular season. So it's not like that huge. But the other part, how to deal with the other guys. Kevin Punter having a 2-game suspension, the other guys getting 1.
Tricky.
And I mean, Zeljko you getting away with nothing. I mean, I agree that he didn't throw any punch. And I agree that, I mean, when you think about the whole situation with all the emotions going down, after getting good sleep during the weekend, when you have time to think about the whole situation, I mean, you could think that, okay, Zeljko, he did this hard foul, but it was not his fault that Punter and some other guys, reacted the way they reacted. And the thing that Zeljko got away just not doing anything, not getting involved in the whole scuffle kind of keeps him in a situation where he kind of deserved not getting suspended. At the same time, even in the EuroLeague regulations, there's this article which says that for provoking or sparking some not like fights but scuffles, you can also be suspended for games. And I mean, I think that was a huge provocation. It would be fair to say that. And although I hear those people advocating that he didn't do nothing, but I mean, he started all this thing, and I know that it could have ended just with players trash talking to each other face, but it ended how it ended, and it all started from Zeljko. So I'm not the guy who wants to keep the players out of the games, but at the same time, I think that at least 1-game suspension would have been the right decision in this situation.
I agree. Maybe 1-game suspension for everyone and a bigger suspension for Yabusele. Yeah. But who will have a bigger advantage? I think Real Madrid definitely. I think not having Kevin Punter is a way bigger loss for Partizan than not having Gershon Yabusele, especially with Gabi Deck coming back. He was a big mismatch in game 1. Partizan adjusted, made a much better job with him in game 2. But I still think he should be one of the main catalysts of offense for Real Madrid in game 4. And, I saw Real Madrid, adjusting to Partizan's game in game 3. And they will have even more options, I think, in game 4. So I wouldn't be surprised if the series goes back to Madrid for game 5, because I think just losing Kevin Punter for 2 games is really harsh for Partizan. He's just such a big part of their offense, and then he's their leader in the clutch moments. But again, Partizan were so close yesterday. They have a home court advantage. I don't believe it doesn't really affect the game. As you said, the players say it doesn't really mean anything. It does mean, I mean, that 10-0 run yesterday showed that home court advantage means something. So it's going to be a really interesting game 4.
Just to conclude this part about the suspensions, because it really affects the series without Kevin Punter in game 4. I mean, we can actually speculate, we can discuss, we can talk what was the fair punishment and what was not fair. But again, I think it all goes down to EuroLeague regulations. Because, I mean, if we would have clear regulations, if we would have clear explanations why the players suspended this way, it would be way easier. And thinking about the situation, I thought that, for instance, let's look at our bigger brother. If that was the NBA, I easily see Adam Silver the following day, doing a press conference, explaining the situation, explaining the way it hurt the image of the EuroLeague.
Explaining the fines
with the maybe disciplinary judge who could make arguments behind all those situations. The same with Zeljko. I mean, I saw later that probably it was the journalist's request to explain why Zeljko got away with not getting suspended. But I mean, it shouldn't work that way. the EuroLeague should address the situation, should address the issue, should also send the message like Partizan did that, hey guys, no violence in Belgrade, just keep calm, just not cross that line. And, it would be way easier. Okay, I still see a lot of fans disagreeing with those decisions, but at least there would be some communication from the EuroLeague. And I think that was, I wouldn't call it epic fight, but it was one of the biggest fights that I remember in the all-time EuroLeague history. And this situation must have been addressed. I don't care. Is it a Zoom press conference or the press conference held in Barcelona? There were media in Barcelona, so EuroLeague as the top European club basketball body in Europe, they should have addressed this situation in a different way. I would say so.
I agree.
So yeah,
should we go to the other game?
That's for sure.
That was the real playoff battle. What I saw yesterday in Tel Aviv, just a low scoring game, defensive battle. The best players of each team taking tough shots. I loved that James started aggressive. I think, in a playoff series, I could even compare his aggressiveness to what I saw in Game 7, Golden State Sacramento. Steph Curry, overly aggressive from the first minutes of the game, just taking shots, getting into the rhythm, getting into that zone, and then after that, punishing Sacramento throughout all 48 minutes. James started amazingly. He set the tone for the entire team, and why I loved it even more was because Maccabi could have easily went on a nice, easy run, just like Partizan did, because of their crowd, because of the transition basketball. They start, with a 10-point lead, and they would have been in front for all game, and Monaco would have, climbed back into that game and used their energy to come back. Instead, it was James who set the tone. It was Monaco leading by 10 points, I think 4 different times. Maccabi were trying to get back. Monaco again goes in front. Then they try to come back again. Monaco then again go on a 10-0 run. I think 10-0 run were like 3 or 4 times for Monaco yesterday. So I love that Mike was aggressive from the start, killing Josh Nebo in ISO situations after Maccabi were switching. Decisive finally in this series, taking these spot-up 3-pointers after Maccabi stunting, Because before I saw other players kicking the ball out to him, James hesitating, making a dribble, and then taking a much harder shot instead of just spot-up 3, which is, in my eyes, an easier shot. So great game for James. Was super important to set the tone for the team and then just, be always in front, because I think this was a must-win game for Monaco. You don't want to go into Game 4 knowing that you must win this game. And now they're comfortable. They know that even if they lose, they will have a Game 5 back at home. So huge game for him.
I think that it was the best James half that I've seen from his playing time in Monaco. And not just because
even last season,
the best half, first half particular.
I'm trying to remember last year's playoff series.
Not just because he had the highest scoring first half of his EuroLeague playoffs career all time with 18 points in 15 minutes, but the way he controlled the tempo of the game, calming down his team in situations where they needed this, calmness. Cold blood from their point guard, and the way he made tough shots. I mean, there were a lot of contested shots, but mostly the way he shared and gave this and sparked this confidence for the entire team. Because, having this crazy bus trip to Menora Meftahim Arena was something for this young team in terms of their playoff experience. Besides of James, there are only a few players that have a small EuroLeague experience. That might affect, you before starting the series in the away court. Then having this, shower of confetti during the warm-up, having Maccabi fans basically yelling in front of your face before the tip-off, that's huge. That's tough. And I think that Tel Aviv's crowd was even more hostile than Belgrade's in the game against Real Madrid, because they were just closer, and it felt like you could feel them way closer than this. 20,000 fans army in Belgrade. And in this situation, watching the first minutes of the game especially, it felt like all the guys were looking for Mike James. They were, the shot clock was going down and like 5 seconds to play, and everybody was just sharing the ball, not hesitating to take any place except from Jordan Lloyd, I would say. And they were all looking for Mike James. And with his shot making, with his plays, with his passing, he really calmed the team down. And you could say that, he scored 3 points in the second half, but this confidence boost by his body language, by his confidence on the court, kind of, the team took it something from it for the second half. And then we saw, players like Elie Okobo, also Jordan Lloyd, Alpha Diallo, some other guys,
Oh, don't forget Donatas Motiejunas.
Donatas Motiejunas, that's for sure. Having, I wouldn't say more guts, but having more confidence to make plays as well in the second half. And they kind of took it over from Mike James, who set the tone, who was also... I would say solid defensively. He had to take a lot of possessions being attacked by Lorenzo Brown. Maccabi was basically attacking through him all the first half, and he was doing a decent job. And I was really concerned how he gonna handle the second half, because he was not just scoring on a crazy volume, but he was also involved in basically every defensive situation. And I would say he did good. He did a good job in the fourth quarter defensively. And I think all around, including his offense and defense, including his body language, the mentality he brought and delivered to his teammates, that was the best Mike James version that I can remember.
I just loved that he took 19 shots. He had 12 and 12 in games 1 and 2. He had 19. I think Monaco needs to continue playing this way with him aggressive. And in my eyes, I see Monaco adjusting. Monaco have adjusted to Maccabi's this hard stun defense every time, either on pick and rolls or on ISO situations. I think Monaco are adjusting, and they're making Maccabi pay for these risks. Maccabi are doing a good job, scrambling around the court, helping each other and stuff. So it's still hard shots, but I think Monaco just are starting to feel comfortable with this defense, sharing the ball, cutting, maybe flare screening with, doing flare screens with the guys that can't really shoot. John Brown doing a good job and finally starting to feel his position on the court. So, and on the other side, they made Maccabi pay for these risks in the first half. Jordan Lloyd making threes like he has been doing since game 1.
Since game 2, maybe.
After game 1.
Yeah, in game 1 he scored like 2 points.
I meant after
after
game
game 1. Okay.
Yeah. So my bad.
But I think that Maccabi were a bit different in the first half against Mike James. It felt like they put him in more situations to play ISO, and they weren't stunting as much as they did before. And the difference in the second half was that they just threw like 2 or 3 people on Mike James just to stop him from making plays and kicking the ball out. I think that there was slight difference between the defensive approach of Maccabi.
I think it was also, Obradovic's way of getting James these ISO situations with how the other players are spaced out. You have basically 2 guys down and 2 guys in the corners. So it makes it really hard to stunt from the corners because it's an open shot. So Mike could have just drive past through Nebo quite a few times. And, if Monaco were able to make Maccabi pay for this, Maccabi weren't able to do that yesterday. With aggressive defense on the pick and rolls against Brown and Baldwin, they played this short roll situation. They kick it out. Jarrell Martin, I think, missed 3 3-pointers in the first half.
A lot of
I
good
think
shots.
all 3 completely open. In the second half, what Maccabi did, they started in these situations, especially in the short roll situations. Instead of staying around the 3-point line, they started cutting inside. So you basically get a layup instead of an open 3, which is, if you make a layup, that's much more higher percentage shot. So they got some points that way. But But you know,
this brick contest, I would call it, already makes an effect in the series because, as you mentioned, these situations in the short roll situations and flipping from the open corner free to the cut. I could say the same thing about Alpha Diallo, for instance. He can barely make a 3-pointers in this series. He made 1 from 8 in 3 games, and you can see that he's also adjusting. He was hesitating in the beginning of the series. Now he's basically just making 1 or 2 steps forward and then taking a mid-range instead of 3-pointer, which is good for him. You know, he's a better mid-range shooter than the 3-pointer, at least for now. The way his mental state, dictates his shooting in the series. But you could feel that it also affects Jarell Martin, as you mentioned. A lot of good looks, a lot of open looks. And Jarell Martin's 3-point shooting is even worse. I just had this number. I think that, he's 1 from 13. And as a guy who should stretch the floor as a 4-man, making threes at 8%, although getting a lot of good looks, that's a huge luxury for Maccabi to not to make those shots. And watching this series, it's just crazy. Maccabi made only 28 3-point shots, 28% of shots beyond the arc. Monaco's percentage is also 28. That's a very low percentage series so far. But the difference is that it works for Maccabi so far because Monaco, compared to the regular season, they increased their 3-point shot attempts by 6, which is quite significant. That's the plays that you want if you're Odet Katash. But watching Maccabi, I would say score, but the correct word would be not score from the 3-point line. Kind of remind me the game 1 in Monaco with Maccabi having a nightmare shooting night. So a couple of 3-pointers by some decent shooters could have easily turned the game around. So that's why I think that this is not over yet. And I'm kind of anticipating game 5 in this series.
And in the end, we saw little plays basically decide the game.
Playoff plays. Those
little hustle plays, 50-50 balls. This felt to me like a game 7, atmosphere in the fourth quarter. Monaco had 12 offensive rebounds. I'm not sure how many in the fourth quarter, but it was Alpha Diallo offensive rebound, Dante Hall offensive rebound. 6 in the fourth quarter. Yeah, that's why I wrote this down.
On 7 missed shots, 6 offensive rebounds. Wow.
Yeah. And it was Diallo offensive rebound after Mike James got in the fast break, tipping the ball in.
Matunas with 2, John Brown with 2.
John Brown had two offensive rebounds as well, scoring that with 42 seconds, I think, remaining, or 45. And then Donatas Motiejunas just getting down on the floor and somehow making that ball stay alive. And starting a transition, which led to a basket.
Yeah.
So
in a decisive moment of the game.
I think Maccabi should will look at this game today and say we have to be more willing to fight for these 50-50 balls in game 4 if we want to win.
Which they were actually doing on a good level in the entire series, but that's a good point about Monaco's hustle. If you could compare their hustle in game 1 and now, that's a huge and decisive factor that kind of pushed them to be in a situation with the advantage. And just one last stat that I wanted to emphasize: 5 turnovers for Monaco.
Only 5
in this crowd under these circumstances
against such an aggressive defense of Maccabi as well. Yeah, that's why I said there. I think it looks to me that they're adjusting to what Maccabi has thrown to them. And does this mean? Is it time for Maccabi to, try to put something even newer? Try to wrinkle their defense?
It's just time for Maccabi to make shots. Lorenz Brown 0 from 5. Carlson 1 from 4. Jarell Martin missed all 3 shots. A lot of potential, and that's why I think that they're not going to survive at all. So,
or simply
that's a great series.
Or simply that, yeah. Make some shots and play the same defense.
And just for the end, our short reactions about the World Cup draw. For me, the whole draw thing was quite random because first of all, it was already strange that we had this draw ceremony just at the end of April. That's already weird. I mean, for me, it's just too late. Then we had this draw ceremony on Saturday. So actually, I completely forgot about the draw because of the playoffs, and I had some trips to my hometown. So I mean, it kind of got off my loop totally. But yeah, we have a draw. And do you have any takes?
I have some big winners and some losers. I think Italy and Serbia are the big winners. They got into this
the best bracket
side of the bracket where they're basically, if they're not doing anything crazy, I don't see them not being in the quarterfinals. We will have the first group of 4, 2 teams qualify. Then there will be a second round of a group principle again. 4, 2 teams qualify. And so from those 8 teams in Group A and B, they are the only ones that I think can be in the quarterfinal. I think Angola, Dominican Republic, Philippines, South Sudan, China, and Puerto Rico, with
all the respect,
could be some surprises, but I just don't see them here. USA, Greece in the same group should be an interesting matchup. Giannis if he's playing, and our national team, Lithuania, will have probably to face off either USA or Greece.
Without many important players.
To find out, are we going to the quarterfinals or not? So
that's tough.
That's going to be probably the...
Now I just don't see them in the quarterfinals. Just the competition is just too tough.
You see Greece.
On the other side, basically, we all agree that there's Germany, Slovenia, Australia, and Finland is also as a dark horse.
That's a great group. I think Group E, Germany, Finland, Australia, and Japan.
That's a tough group.
NBA players in each
and Okinawa.
In each team. So
and then in Jakarta we have probably Spain, France, and then this uncertain situation with Canada. What kind of group they're gonna bring, and Latvia.
Biggest loser is Latvia.
I mean, they were already losers since 2017 when they kind of due to the FIBA window system, which didn't allow them to have EuroLeague and NBA players, they couldn't qualify to any major tournament. And now it's their first tournament, a big tournament in 6 years, and they get the group of all-time finalists like France, making every final of every tournament they play, and Canada potentially with NBA stars, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for instance. So I feel so bad for Bralukas.
And they probably feel bad for us, but
yeah,
it's only the draw. We'll have to see which players come. I think participate in the tournament because I think with the Olympics next year, we could see some major losses to this tournament.
At the same time, it's also important competition to get those Olympic qualification tickets. So
I can see some players, saying, I'm going to rest this summer and then, try to be in the part of the Olympic team.
By the way, any short thoughts on Embiid getting the MVP award? No surprises at all?
No, I mean...
Because of the voting.
I'm not surprised because you could see that Jokic wasn't getting the third MVP just because it would be the third MVP in a row.
Which is not fair, but anyways.
I mean, all 3 picks, Giannis, Jokic, and Joel Embiid would have, they have their own arguments. Obviously, Jokic has all the advanced stats in his part and the first seed in the Western Conference. And I think the last third of the season heavily influenced the choice of many media members and other voters. So my vote would have gone the other way, but I think Joel Embiid deserves the award just as much as Nikola and Giannis.
Okay, and just on the last note, many listeners might be shocked that tonight we will get to know a team that will join the EuroLeague next year. I mean, tonight is the EuroCup final.
Oh,
can you imagine?
I was thinking, what do you have in mind?
I mean, it feels like that EuroCup is organized by
forgot
FIBA,
about that.
and these are two competitive, companies trying to host big events at the same time that clash each other. We have EuroCup final between Ankara, which I saw as my dark horse for this whole EuroCup playoffs, and Gran Canaria, and then at the same time, basically, and basically at the same time we have Žalgiris and Barca, and especially Olympiacos Fenerbahce, and EuroCup final is scheduled on the same night. It's just ridiculous for me. I just don't get it, really. I just don't get it. I don't see any explanation how it makes sense.
There is no explanation.
It's just another sign that nobody cares about the EuroCup. Even the EuroLeague doesn't care about the EuroCup at all, really. How can you put them at the same night as the playoff series? Why you cannot wait for another week with potential Game 5 games excluded? Make it on Friday, make it on Saturday. I don't care. I mean, there are so many ways to reschedule this game.
I don't know what to say. This is not the first time, neither the second time. This is like the 15th time this year I'm hearing you making similar comments, and every time I hear them, I agree with you. So my first thought when you were saying we are going to find out the team was like, are you really having a press conference today and saying who will get the wild cards for next year? Because I'm just so concentrated on on EuroLeague playoffs, and what we will have tonight and what we had yesterday. So I completely forgot that the EuroCup final is also today. So maybe it's just us, concentrating on the EuroLeague playoffs much more. But
maybe Ankara fans doesn't care about the playoffs.
That's another also thing of why I think series is much more interesting than a single elimination game. Also because you have this attention for 2-3 weeks,
and it's all about attention span nowadays. Like there's a great example how NBA keeps this attention the entire year, even when the games are not played. That's their way of their success. So again, Marshall Glickman is not a big fan of the playoff series for the Final Four instead of the Final Four. So we might be, just complaining about it for many years.
Talking to a wall.
Yeah. That's all, guys. Thanks a lot for listening. This week, I would say we might be talking to each other more than before because just of this crazy playoff series that we are having. So it depends on the outcome of the games we have moving forward. But yeah, that's a great reason, to jump in for the pod during this great playoff time. So see you very soon. Press like button, please subscribe our channel, and also join our Beyond Plus community on basketnews.com/plus.